Gentleman from West Virginia rise.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass H.Res. 1043.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Resolution 1043, resolution honoring the life and legacy of Chief Standing Bear, a pioneer in civil rights for Native Americans, on the 100th anniversary of Chief Standing Bear's death.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from West Virginia, Mr. Rahal, and the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Bishop, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from West Virginia.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the resolution under consideration.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks, and I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Chief Standing Bear, a member of the Ponca tribe of Nebraska, stood against the grains of injustice in the name of his people. His valuable and historical contributions as a Native American leader would be further honored on the 100th anniversary of his death through this resolution. I would like to commend our colleague from Nebraska, Mr. Fortenberry, for sponsoring this resolution that is before us today. I urge my colleagues to support its passage and reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Utah.
Thank you. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
House Resolution 1043 honors the life and legacy of Chief Standing Bear, a pioneer in civil rights for Native Americans. Resolution also commemorates the 100th anniversary of the death, and I ask my colleagues to join me in honoring Chief Standing Bear. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves.
I yield back.
I do have one speaker.
I reserve the balance of my time.
All right. With that, Mr. Speaker, I would yield as much time as he may consume to the gentleman from Nebraska, the sponsor of this bill, the author of this bill, Mr. Fortenberry.
The gentleman from Nebraska is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I would like to begin by thanking the gentleman from West Virginia, Mr. Rahal, for his assistance in bringing this important resolution to the floor, as well as the distinguished gentleman from Alaska, Mr. Young, for his assistance as well. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this resolution, a measure I introduced earlier this year to honor the life and legacy of Chief Standing Bear. His plea for justice and human decency challenged the heart of our nation, yet his poignant story as one of America's earliest civil rights leaders remains largely unknown. 2008 is the 100th anniversary of Chief Standing Bear's death. It is fitting that we honor this anniversary, that generations of Americans will know his life and his legacy. Standing Bear was born in the Niobrara River Valley in what is now Nebraska in 1834. An individual of exceptional talent and ability, he became chief of the Ponca tribe at a young age. In 1877, the Ponca people were forced by treaty to relocate from their home in Nebraska to the Indian Territory of Oklahoma. The hardship of this 500-mile journey on foot, illnesses, as well as the harsh living conditions in Oklahoma, caused the death of many members of the tribe, including Chief Standing Bear's son. Committed to a promise he made to his son to return him to their Niobrara homeland for burial, Chief Standing Bear left for Nebraska with all who would follow him. Upon their return, the chief and 30 of his fellow Ponca tribe members were arrested by the Department of Interior in Omaha. With the assistance of Omaha attorneys John Webster and A.J. Poppleton and frontier newsman Thomas Tibbles, who worked for the predecessor to our current newspaper in Omaha, the Omaha World Herald, Chief Standing Bear petitioned the federal courts for relief from the unjust federal treatment of the Ponca tribe. In 1879, the case came before U.S. District Court Judge Elmer Dundy. At the conclusion of his testimony, Chief Standing Bear raised his hand and he spoke these words. "That hand is not the color of yours," he said, "but if I pierce it, I shall feel pain. If you pierce your hand, you will also feel pain. The blood that will flow from mine will be the same color as yours. I am a man. God made us both." The wisdom and dignity in Standing Bear's words were not lost on Judge Dundy, who ruled that Native Americans are, in fact, citizens endowed with all of the rights and all of the freedoms guaranteed by the United States Constitution. Through the steadfast efforts of Chief Standing Bear and caring Nebraskans, the Ponca won their freedom and their right to return to their Nebraska homeland on the Niobrara, where Chief Standing Bear declared, "Here we will live, and here we will die." Chief Standing Bear would spend the next 4 years touring the United States, advocating for Native American civil rights and inspiring a generation. Then he returned home to his home near the mouth of the Niobrara, farmed his land, and died there a quarter century later in 1908. Mr. Speaker, the courage and determination of Chief Standing Bear have earned him a place in our civil rights history. His example is an inspiration for all those engaged in the advancement of civil rights, of human rights. I want to thank all of my colleagues in the House who have been supportive of bringing this resolution to the floor so that we can rightly honor this great man, Chief Standing Bear. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. Gentleman from West Virginia.
I have no further request for time. I'm prepared to yield back.
I yield back.
The gentleman from Utah yields back.
I do yield back.
West Virginia yields back. All time has expired. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to House Resolution 1043? Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended and the resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose?